Florida State is currently in the middle of their second bye week of the season. They play Georgia Tech in 10 days, and fans are wondering how the Noles will rebound after 3 straight losses and a bye week. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Do me a favor, make sure you're subscribed below. Hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel an absolute ton when you do that. And share with me your comments on how you think the Noles will come out against the Yellow Jackets in 10 days. Mike Norvell has coached his team 9 times after scheduled bye weeks. As a quick note, the 2022 FSU football team did play in 2 games, that's Miami and Duke, after being off the week before, but those were not scheduled bye weeks, in which the team would have had more recovery time, extra prep for the upcoming opponent, etc. So we'll ignore those 2. In the 9 games he has coached in, he has a near perfect record, with the only defeat coming in 2020. If you remember the COVID year, they lost the contest against Pittsburgh. I want to look at a few areas of importance when it comes to how Mike Norvell coached teams have historically performed after a bye week. We'll talk about those. We'll talk about what it means for the Noles against Georgia Tech, and we'll get you guys back on your way. Number 1, I want to talk about quick starts. Starting fast coming off of a bye week is not necessarily something that's consistent for Norvell coached teams. Their largest lead after the first quarter was in 2016 when Memphis led Kansas 13-0, but on average, Mike Norvell coached teams score 10.2 points in the opening quarter coming off a bye, and they give up 9.8 points in that quarter. Just a slight razor-thin difference. Essentially, you're looking at likely a 10-10 contest on average. The positive here, and what this does show, leads us directly to our next point. Mike Norvell coached teams are consistently better over the final 3 quarters of the game. Whether they're leading, tied, or trailing 15 minutes into the contest, Norvell coached teams find a way to win coming off of a bye. Doesn't matter what kind of start they get off to, the Noles find a way to be better more often than not over the last 3 quarters and find ways to win the game. Next up, this isn't the greatest stat, but it is something to consider. Mike Norvell coached teams average roughly 10 more yards in penalty yardage coming off of a bye than they do across that current season. I'm not sure if this is due to rust, preparation, what the situation is here, but it was surprising to me. To be somewhat fair to this current Noles team with a roster that's pretty intact from last year, they are averaging less penalties, about 65% to be exact, coming off of a bye over the last 2 seasons. That would include the UMass game and the Louisville game from this year. We'll see if penalties factor in against Georgia Tech or not. You'd certainly like the Noles to be under their season average when they face Georgia Tech in 10 days. Lastly, Mike Norvell coached teams cover the spread when they're coming off of a bye. They're 8-1 in that situation, and the only time they haven't covered the spread was when they lost to Pittsburgh in that 2020 COVID season. The typical spread for a Norvell coached team coming off of a bye is -12, and they're winning by an average margin of 16 points a game, so they're covering the spread. As a favorite coming off of a bye, which Florida State certainly will be against Georgia Tech, Norvell has never lost. As an underdog, he's 1-1, as his team beat UCLA in 2017 with a final score of 45-42. What can we take away from this? Well, a few things. Number 1, Mike Norvell has his teams prepared to win coming off of a bye. They've done it 8 out of 9 times in games he's coached. Number 2, when his team's a favorite, they've never not covered the spread. Number 3, they're not necessarily more disciplined in the way of penalties, as they average slightly more penalty yards per game coming off of a bye. Number 4, they don't always get off to blazing starts, but they're almost always better over the course of the game. And number 5, as for Georgia Tech, this all almost assuredly spells out trouble, as the Noles will look to keep Norvell's ways going strong by winning next Saturday afternoon in Doak Campbell Stadium. Again, I appreciate you tuning in. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe below, and let me know your thoughts on how the Noles will fare coming off of a bye next week.